Vacuoles. What does that name sound like? Vacuum. What do vacuums do? Yeah, they take in what? Dirty waste is the answer. Good. So vacuoles take in waste and water, and they kind of use it as a storage for food. Okay? So they collect waste and water, and it becomes like a food source. The animal and plant cells, vacuoles vary significantly in their appearance and function. So I put a picture of each. Tell me what you see is different. Yes. Correct. It's a large central vacuole. This white bubble here is actually the vacuole of a plant cell, and this little circle here is the vacuole of an animal cell. What do you think that big bubble is for? Water, because it does what? And the plant needs water to keep its leaves what? Green and really firm, okay, and crispy. Now, if I was going to ask you this question, how can you identify, if I give you a cell on a test and I give you parts and I say label the vacuole and label the lysosome, how can you identify one from the other? They're both circular, and that's correct, but the lysosome is a circular structure with dots on it, which are, in a sense, digestive, enzymes that help the lysosome get rid of organelles at a faster pace. So destructive enzymes to help get rid of invaders or worn out organelles, okay? So that would be the difference. Yes, so it varies in size. Next is the cytoskeleton. When you see this word, you want to think of the word filament and tubules, okay? Microfilaments and microtubules are associated with the cytoskeleton. And they help the cell maintain shape, and they're also responsible for the cell's what? Nope. Look at these things I'm showing you here. Anybody know what these things do? Movement. Awesome. They help the cell move. And these structures are cilia and flagella. So microfilaments are small and they help cells move through pseudopodia. You actually don't have to know that, okay? We're going to get back to that when we study protists and other organisms. And microtubules are large and they help form the spindle. When we start our next chapter, you won't have to know that either. I want you to know that the cytoskeleton has filaments and tubules, right? A network, and cilia and flagella are a perfect example. And that's it. And they're responsible for shape and movement. So I kind of narrowed this page down for you. Moving on. So cilia and flagella look alike. What do they look like, kind of? Yep. Like hairs. Hairs, okay? They're like hair-like extensions. And they help with what? Movement. The cilia are tiny little hairs that extend out, and the flagella is like a whip or a tail you could put here. So my first year at McCarthy, when I taught this unit, somebody named the cell membrane the Border Patrol, which I thought was like the most genius name ever, because the name describes what it is or where it's located and its function all in one word. So who could tell me, based on that name, what is the function of the cell membrane?
To keep out like invaders.
And?
Keep everything
Protecting.
No. Stick to and raise your hand so I could hear. He said keep out. A border patrol keeps everybody out? It controls what enters and exits. That's exactly what the cell membrane does. And where is it located according to the name? On the outside or surrounding the cell, okay? And as we mentioned when we did the unit on organic compounds, remember this word phospholipids? Form membranes. Your cell membrane is made up of 2 layers of phospholipids, and I'm going to get more into that in the next slide. These 2 organelles are actually, we've been covering eukaryotic animal cell, okay? That, if you notice every shape, when I show you the shape of a cell, it's circular, and plant cells are actually square. But these structures, obviously you have to know, are organelles that are only specific to plant cells. So animal cells don't have them. Anybody know what they are? Chloroplasts, which make chlorophyll. And what are they responsible? What's the other one? Cell wall. Good. Who could tell me the function of any? Yep.
It involves in the photosynthesis part and makes the chlorophyll, which gives it the green color.
Perfect. It gives it the green color and allows for photosynthesis. And that's chloroplast. What about the cell wall? What do walls do for you? Well, somewhat.
It helps connect all the cells together.
Not really. Maintain structure and shape. Good. That's what a wall does. Think about if we lost this wall, what happens to this room? The shape changes, it can collapse, the roof won't stay up, things of that nature. Good. This diagram, where is the cell wall in comparison to the cell membrane? Outside. Remember that the plasma membrane, it means the same thing as cell membrane. The cell wall is outside the membrane. As I mentioned, cell membrane also can be known as the plasma membrane. So if you see any of those two names, they mean the same thing. Now, if you look at this diagram, before we look at the diagram, what's the function? Controls what enters and exits, okay? They call it a selectively permeable membrane. What does that mean? Selectively permeable. It picks things, right? It allows certain things to come in based on its needs, I guess. You could say is perfect. Now look at this picture and tell me, what do you think the cell membrane is made up of? A protein, good. And phospholipids. What does bilayer mean? Two. Here's one layer of lipids and here's another layer of lipids. And it's a phospholipid because it has a phosphate head, which I'm going to tell you next, and a tail, which is your fatty acid. So phospholipid head. Look at the picture. Tell me what it's made up of. Yes.
Glycerol.
Look at the picture. Head. Water. Nope. Phosphate. Good. What about the tail? Oscar? Fatty acids. Now think about this. The cell membrane controls what enters and exits. What do we know about fats and water? They what? They don't mix. They repel water. Remember we learned that in the last unit? So what part of a phospholipid do you think repels water?
The tail.
The tail, which is made up of the fatty acid. So they call the tail non-polar hydrophobic. Phobic, like get away from me, water, right? Water hating. So what's the head going to be? Loving. Hydro what? Philic. Good. Done.